Get out of my store. People like you don't belong here. The voice cracked through the crowded aisles like a whip. Then came the sound that made the entire store freeze. A sharp, open-handed slap. Ava Johnson's face jerked to the side from the impact. She didn't stumble. She didn't even blink. But the sting wasn't just physical. It was history, humiliation, and heat all at once. Customers gasped. Phones came out. The manager, Harris Cole, stood over her, chest heaving, his red polo stretched tight across his shoulders like armor. He had no idea who he had just struck. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now back to Ava. Ava Johnson was 43, dressed in a simple gray hoodie and black jeans, her natural curls tucked into a low ponytail. There was nothing flashy about her. No designer bag, no security detail, no hint of power. That was intentional. She had walked into ColeMart that afternoon with one purpose: to see how customers were treated when no one was watching. Now everyone was watching. Harris's voice dripped with contempt as he pointed at the door. You heard me, leave. We don't need your kind causing trouble. Ava looked up at him slowly. Her cheek burned, but her expression didn't change. The silence that followed felt louder than any scream. Sir, a teenage employee whispered from behind the register. She didn't do anything. Harris whipped around. Stay out of this, Maria. You don't want to lose your job too. Ava noted the word, but said nothing. Instead, she adjusted the strap of the small canvas tote on her shoulder and turned to face the crowd. She could feel dozens of eyes on her, some horrified, some curious, some already filming for social media. Are you going to stand there? Harris barked at security, a tall guard in a black jacket who hovered near the entrance. Escort her out now. The guard shifted uncomfortably, but didn't move. Ava's stillness unsettled him. It unsettled everyone. Ava remembered being 17, dragged out of a boutique in Atlanta because the clerk assumed she couldn't afford anything. She remembered the sting of humiliation then, the way the door closed behind her as strangers stared. She had promised herself it would never happen again. Now, decades later, here it was again. Only this time, she wasn't the same girl. Harris stepped closer, his breath hot with rage. You think you can ignore me? Ava spoke for the first time, her voice low but clear. I heard you. Then leave before I call the cops. A woman near the shoe aisle raised her phone higher. This isn't right, she muttered. Ava met her eyes briefly, then looked back at Harris. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't even angry, not outwardly. She was measuring him. Inside, she was already making a decision. She slid one hand into her pocket and touched the phone there, not to dial 911, but to activate a silent protocol she had designed years ago. But not yet. She let Harris speak, let the crowd see his rage unchecked. You people think you can just walk in here and take what you want, he shouted, gesturing toward a small display of luxury headphones Ava had been browsing before he stormed over. Ava didn't move. Her silence was louder than his words. And everyone in that store felt it. Harris Cole's nostrils flared as if Ava's calm was an insult. I said leave, he barked again, louder this time. The sound bounced off the polished tile and fluorescent lights of the ColeMart superstore. Customers froze in place like mannequins. Ava didn't move. She could feel the faint warmth still radiating from the slap on her cheek, but her spine was straight, unbroken. She had learned long ago that silence often spoke louder than any words. Ma'am, please. Maria, the young cashier, stepped forward. Her hands trembled as she looked at Harris. She's done nothing wrong. Maria. Harris snapped. Clock out if you want to defend thieves. A hush fell over the aisle. That word, thieves, was heavy, laced with the same assumptions Ava had heard her entire life. It wasn't about anything she had done. It was about who she was. Ava's phone buzzed faintly in her pocket, a silent confirmation. Her assistant Carla had received the alert. Protocol 7 was in motion. Every camera, every transaction, every employee record was now being pulled in real time by the corporate system she had built. But no one here knew that. You think staying quiet makes you innocent? Harris sneered. He stepped so close Ava could smell the cheap aftershave clinging to his collar. I don't care who you think you are, you're not going to take advantage of this store. A customer near the refrigerators muttered, she's just standing there. Another, older woman whispered, why is he so angry? Ava finally looked up at Harris, meeting his eyes with a steady, unwavering gaze. "I'm not leaving," she said simply. The words rattled him. "Security," he roared. The guard by the door hesitated. He had seen enough incidents go viral to know when a manager was overstepping. "Mr. Cole, she's not resisting," he said quietly. "Then make her resist." Harris jabbed a finger toward Ava. "Drag her out if you have to." Ava shifted slightly, lifting her chin. In that moment, she wasn't just a woman being targeted. She was a CEO, a billionaire, and the owner of every square inch of this building. But revealing that now would end the lesson too soon. "Sir, please don't," Maria whispered again, her voice barely audible. Harris spun on her, voice booming. "You're one more word away from unemployment, Maria. Do you understand?" Ava caught Maria's eyes, giving the girl a small nod, silent encouragement. It was the same nod Ava wished someone had given her at 17 when she had been shoved out of a boutique by a manager just like Harris. That humiliation had fueled her entire career, every acquisition, every late night spent building a company powerful enough to change things. And now she was here, in a store she owned, watching history try to repeat itself. Harris turned back toward Ava, his jaw tight. "Last chance. Walk out, or I'll call the cops and have you arrested for trespassing." A man in a suit standing by the checkout line stepped forward slightly. "She's not trespassing," he said. "You're crossing a line. Mind your business," Harris snapped, his face blotchy with rage. Ava took a breath. She could end this in one sentence. But instead, she pulled her phone from her pocket and tapped a single button. Carla's voice came through her earpiece instantly. "Ma'am, corporate audit is live. Cameras are synced. Do you want me to escalate?" "Not yet," Ava murmured. "Understood," Carla said. "We're standing by." Harris didn't notice the quiet exchange. He was too busy puffing his chest at the customers, desperate to reassert control. "This woman doesn't belong here," he shouted. "And if anyone has a problem with how I run my store, you can leave too." No one moved. Ava's calm presence was shifting the air in the room. Customers were starting to question. Phones were raised higher. Harris stepped even closer, voice dripping with contempt. "You think just because you stand there, silent, I won't put you on the sidewalk where you belong?" Ava finally spoke, each word measured. "I know exactly where I belong." Something in her tone made Harris falter for just a fraction of a second. But then he recovered, louder than before. "Security, I'm giving you 5 seconds. 1, 2. The guard stayed rooted to the floor. Ava slid her phone back into her pocket and exhaled slowly. 10 minutes had passed since Harris first laid his hand on her. 10 minutes was enough. It was almost time to end this. 3, 4. Harris's countdown cut through the store like a fire alarm. But no one moved. Not the guard, not the customers, and certainly not Ava Johnson. She stood perfectly still, eyes fixed on Harris as if memorizing every vein throbbing on his temple. Her stillness made him uneasy, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. 5, he barked, voice cracking. Ava finally spoke. "We're done." The words were quiet, but the entire store seemed to hear them. Harris blinked. "Excuse me." Ava stepped forward, closing the distance between them. "You've humiliated me. You've threatened me. And you've assaulted me twice." Her voice was low, steady, unflinching. "That ends now." Harris tried to laugh, but it sounded nervous. "Oh, so now you want to talk? You think you can walk back in here tomorrow? You're banned for life." Ava slipped her hand into her pocket and pressed the hidden button on her phone again. "Carla," she said softly. "Escalate." On the other end, her assistant's voice was crisp and immediate. "Yes, ma'am. Executive termination protocol initiated. The board is watching live." Ava's gaze didn't leave Harris's face. "In about 30 seconds, your life is going to change. Do you understand that?" Harris scoffed. "Lady, the only thing changing is you leaving in handcuffs." A notification chimed from the register behind him. Maria, the young cashier, frowned as she glanced at the screen. "Mr. Cole, your access just logged out." "What?" Harris spun around. The POS terminal now displayed a message in bold red. "Access revoked. Contact corporate." "Probably a glitch," Harris muttered. But his voice lacked conviction. Then the store's intercom crackled. A calm female voice filled every aisle. "Attention ColeMart staff. Store management access has been frozen pending executive review. Please stand by." The color drained from Harris's face. What is this?" Ava finally stepped fully into the light of the checkout lane. She didn't raise her voice, She didn't need to. It's me, correcting a problem. Harris blinked. What are you talking about? Ava's eyes locked on his. Do you know who I am? He laughed again, hollow. Yeah, you're a troublemaker. A thief. Someone who... No, Ava's tone sliced through his words like a blade. I'm Ava Johnson, CEO of A&J Enterprises. And I own ColeMart. Every store. Every aisle. Every paycheck, including yours. The room went silent. Even the hum of the refrigerators seemed to pause. Maria's jaw dropped. She owns ColeMart, she whispered. A customer in the back, still holding his phone aloft, muttered, Oh my God, she's the CEO. Harris stumbled a step back. No, that's impossible. You're lying. Ava reached into her bag and pulled out a slim black portfolio. She opened it slowly, deliberately, and placed a single document on the counter. The ColeMart corporate seal gleamed at the top. Her name was printed in bold beneath. Chief Executive Officer. Still think I'm lying? She asked. Harris stared at the document like it might burn him. Ava leaned in slightly. You slapped me in a store I own. You threatened me in front of customers. You call me a thief. That's not just a mistake, Mr. Cole. That's a career-ending decision. The guard near the entrance shifted uncomfortably, his hand twitching near his radio. Ma'am, do you want us to? Ava shook her head. No, we're not dragging anyone. We're doing this the right way. She turned to Maria. Please call all employees to the front. Now. Maria nodded quickly, grabbing the PA mic, staffed to the checkout lane. Immediately, as employees began trickling in from every corner of the store, Ava stepped back, giving Harris room, but not escape. You had 10 minutes to stop, she said quietly. Now, I'm stopping you. Harris swallowed hard. You can't fire me like this. Ava's eyes hardened. I just did. The intercom buzzed again. Carla's voice filled the store. Effective immediately, Harris Cole has been terminated. All corporate credentials have been revoked. Please return any company property and step away from the register. Gasps rippled through the staff. Customers began clapping. First one, then another, then a wave of applause that made Harris's face twist with shame. Ava stood silently, her posture regal and unshaken. She had endured his slap, his humiliation, his threats. But now, the power dynamic had shifted completely, and Harris Cole knew it. Harris's lips trembled as the clapping grew louder. It wasn't just noise, it was judgment, final and public. He looked around, desperate for an ally, but every pair of eyes in the store was fixed on him, cold and unflinching. You can't do this, he stammered, his voice cracking. This isn't legal. Ava didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. You're right, she said calmly. It's not legal for a store manager to assault a customer, to humiliate her, to call security on her for existing. I didn't know, Harris's words died on his tongue. That I was the CEO? Ava stepped closer, closing the space between them. That's the problem. You think dignity depends on status. That you can mistreat someone because you think they're powerless. That ends today. Behind her, Maria clutched the PA mic with trembling hands. All employees are here, she whispered. Ava nodded, then turned to face the small crowd of staff now gathered near the registers. Most of them avoided Harris's gaze. A few looked visibly angry. You all saw what happened, Ava began, her voice carrying across the store. You watched your manager strike a customer, demean her, and threaten her. Ask yourself, is this the leadership you deserve? No one spoke. But a stockroom employee, a young man with paint stains on his apron, finally stepped forward. No, ma'am, he said softly. Ava gave a small nod. I didn't think so. She looked back at Harris. Your actions reflect on this entire company. Every time you abuse your authority, you tell your team it's acceptable. You tell customers they don't belong. That's over. Harris tried to steady his voice. I've worked here for 8 years. You can't just throw that away. You threw it away the moment you put your hands on me, Ava said sharply. And the moment you treated every customer who didn't look like your idea of worthy the same way. A murmur rippled through the staff. Maria raised her hand timidly. I've seen him do this before, she admitted. Not just to her. To other customers too. Especially people of color. Gasps spread through the employees. Harris's face went pale. That's a lie. It's the truth, Maria said, her voice gaining strength. You told me to ignore it. To keep quiet if I wanted to keep my job. But not anymore. Ava's gaze swept the room. Does anyone else want to speak? A middle-aged cashier stepped forward, tears welling in her eyes. Last month, he yelled at a black mother with 2 kids. Accused her of stealing diapers. She was crying. We all knew she hadn't stolen anything. Another employee added. He called the cops on a man for looking at power tools too long. He wasn't stealing. He was deciding which one to buy. The air grew heavier with each testimony. Harris's shoulders sagged. You're all turning on me, he hissed. They're telling the truth, Ava corrected. Something you never cared about. Customers began murmuring louder, anger rising with every word. One man in a suit said, I shop here every week. I'm done if this is how you treat people. A woman holding a toddler nodded. We can't support a store that protects managers like him. Ava turned to face Harris fully. This isn't about me anymore, she said. This is about the damage you've done to this community. The trust you've broken. Harris's voice dropped to a whisper. Please, I'm begging you. Don't ruin my life. Ava's eyes softened slightly, but only for a moment. You ruined your own life the moment you decided my dignity didn't matter, she said. Now you'll face the consequences. She tapped her earpiece again. Carla. Yes, ma'am, Carla's voice replied. Lock him out of all company systems. Freeze any severance. Prepare legal for a full investigation into past incidents. Confirmed, Carla said. Harris let out a strangled sound as his company phone vibrated with the termination notice. His badge, clipped to his belt, emitted a soft red flash. Deactivated. Ava turned back to the staff. From this moment forward, this store will operate differently. There will be zero tolerance for discrimination or abuse. If you see it, you report it, and you will be heard. The employees nodded, some wiping away tears. Customers began clapping again, louder this time, the sound swelling like a wave. Ava didn't smile. She simply stood, composed and steady, letting the applause wash over the room. This was bigger than her. It always had been. The clapping faded, replaced by a tense, expectant hush. All eyes remained on Ava Johnson, the black woman CEO who had just dismantled her store manager's authority in front of everyone. Harris Cole stood frozen, his chest rising and falling as though he'd just run a marathon. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The weight of his own actions, and the public shame, pressed on him like a vice. Ava's voice broke the silence. Harris Cole, she said clearly, your employment with ColeMart is terminated, effective immediately. You will leave this store today, and you will not step foot in any ColeMart property again. The words landed like a gavel. Harris's knees almost buckled. Please, please, Ava. Miss Johnson, I've got a family. I've given this company 8 years. Ava's eyes were steady, unwavering. And in those 8 years, how many families did you humiliate? How many customers left this store in tears because you assumed they didn't belong? He had no answer. This isn't about me, Ava continued. This is about every person you made feel small. Every person you told, you don't belong. Harris's lips trembled. I just wanted to protect the store. Ava stepped closer, her voice soft but cutting. You don't protect a store by destroying its reputation. By destroying people. That's not leadership, that's abuse. Harris's shoulders sagged in defeat. So that's it. You're throwing me away. Ava's voice was even. No. I'm holding you accountable. She turned to the security guard at the entrance. Please escort Mr. Cole out. He is no longer an employee of this company. The guard, who had stood frozen earlier, stepped forward carefully. Sir, you'll need to hand over your badge and company phone. Harris glanced at the crowd, employees and customers alike, hoping for someone to intervene. No one moved. One by one, he handed over his items. The guard gestured toward the door. Harris shuffled forward slowly, his face red with shame. The automatic doors slid open, and the sunlight outside cut across the linoleum floor like a final, unforgiving spotlight. Wait, Ava called just as he reached the threshold. Harris turned, a flicker of hope flashing in his eyes. Ava stepped forward, her presence commanding every inch of the room. I want you to hear this, she said. You slapped me in a store I own. You humiliated me in front of my employees and my customers. And you assumed that because I was a black woman dressed simply, I was beneath you. That assumption ended your career today. The entire store was silent. Ava's next words were sharp enough to slice the air. Never mistake silence for weakness. Never again. Harris swallowed hard, then dropped his gaze. Without another word, he stepped outside. The doors closed behind him with a quiet hiss. For a moment, no one moved. Then a small, hesitant cheer rose from the employees gathered near the registers. It was followed by another, and soon applause filled the room again. This time not for Harris's downfall, but for what Ava had stood for. Ava raised a hand gently, and the clapping subsided. "This isn't a celebration," she said softly. "This is a reset. From this moment forward, we do things differently. No customer, no employee will ever be treated the way I was treated today." Maria, the young cashier, stepped forward. "Ms. Johnson, thank you. For listening. For believing us." Ava met her eyes. "Thank you for speaking up. That takes courage." A man in a suit, a regular customer, cleared his throat. "Ms. Johnson, I hope you know you've earned a lot of loyal shoppers today. We saw everything. And we'll remember." Ava gave a single nod. "I appreciate that. But loyalty shouldn't be built on moments like this. It should be built on trust, day after day. That's what we'll earn back." She turned toward the employees. "Corporate will send a team to support you through the transition. Maria will be the acting shift lead for now. We'll rebuild this store the right way, together." Maria's eyes widened, but she nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am." Ava scanned the crowd one last time, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who had endured worse and built stronger. ColeMart belongs to the people we serve, and to the people who keep it running with integrity. Never forget that. The staff nodded solemnly. Customers began lining up again, phones lowering, conversations softening. The store was slowly returning to normal, but it wasn't the same. Ava Johnson stood at the center, unshaken, a living reminder of dignity reclaimed. And the world would remember what had just happened in this store. The automatic doors slid shut behind Harris Cole, cutting him off from the life he had once ruled. The crowd inside the store remained still, processing what had just unfolded before their eyes. Ava Johnson stood at the center of it all, her presence commanding, her expression calm but resolute. She turned toward the employees. "You have a store to run," she said softly. "Don't let today's chaos stop you from taking care of the customers who matter." Maria, the young cashier, nodded quickly. "We will, Ms. Johnson." Ava gave a small nod. "I'll be checking in. And corporate will be here in a few hours to start the rebuilding process. Until then, treat everyone who walks through those doors the way you wish you had been treated when you first started here." The employees nodded solemnly, a new sense of unity in their faces. Ava turned to leave. Customers instinctively stepped aside, parting like a silent guard of honor. Some whispered, "Thank you," as she passed. One woman with a toddler clutched her hand over her heart and mouth. "You're incredible." Ava gave a small, appreciative smile, but said nothing. As she stepped out into the bright afternoon sun, the cameras began flashing. News crews had arrived, tipped off by customers who had been live streaming the confrontation. Microphones reached for her, voices overlapping. "Ms. Johnson, is it true you fired the store manager on the spot? Do you plan to press charges for the assault? Was this a one-time incident or part of a larger problem at ColeMart?" Ava paused on the sidewalk, the crowd pressing forward. She could feel every camera lens trained on her, every word she spoke ready to be dissected. She took a breath and answered clearly. "What happened inside that store today was unacceptable," she said. "Not because I'm the CEO, not because I own this company, but because no one should be treated the way I was treated. Ever." The reporters quieted, scribbling furiously. "ColeMart," Ava continued, "is built on serving communities with dignity and respect. We failed that standard today. That will not happen again. Effective immediately, we are launching a company-wide review of every store, every manager, every policy. And we will make changes." Flashes erupted. A journalist shouted, "Will you fire more managers?" Ava didn't flinch. "If they behave like the one you saw today, yes. Discrimination has no place in this company or anywhere else." A murmur of approval rippled through the crowd. Customers and employees alike held up their phones, capturing the moment. Ava stepped toward her black SUV, where her assistant Carla waited by the door. "Is the board watching?" Ava asked quietly. Carla nodded. "They've seen everything. They're unanimous in their support. And social media is exploding. #RespectAva is trending worldwide. Millions of views already." Ava exhaled slowly. "Good. This isn't about me. It's about changing the culture before it rots from the inside." Carla handed her a tablet. The screen showed dozens of messages flooding in. Customers sharing their own stories of mistreatment, employees thanking her for speaking up Community leaders pledging support. People are with you, Carla said softly. Ava looked at the screen for a long moment. Then she closed the tablet and stepped into the SUV. As the car pulled away, she glanced back at the ColeMart sign towering over the parking lot. She thought about the little girl she had been, 17, humiliated, escorted out of a store simply for looking suspicious. She had carried that shame for years, turning it into drive, into vision, into power. Now, she was using that power for something bigger than herself. Carla broke the silence. Do you want to release a formal statement tonight? Ava shook her head. No. The video is already speaking louder than any press release could. But schedule a press conference for tomorrow morning. I want every employee, every customer, every community to know this company will change. Yes, ma'am, Carla said. Ava's phone buzzed with notifications. Reporters, board members, community leaders. She ignored them for now. Her mind was on the bigger picture. This wasn't about firing one manager. It was about dismantling a culture of bias, one store at a time. She leaned back against the leather seat, her face still bearing the faint mark of Harris Cole's slap. But it wasn't a mark of weakness. It was a mark of purpose. The next morning, the air around ColeMart's downtown headquarters was electric. Satellite trucks lined the street, reporters jostled for position on the steps, and the company's logo gleamed above the entrance like a beacon. Inside, Ava Johnson stood behind a sleek podium in the glass-walled atrium. Rows of employees and community leaders filled the space, while hundreds more watched the live stream from around the world. Carla adjusted the mic. We're live, she whispered. Ava scanned the room, taking in the tense faces, the camera flashes, the anticipation. She wasn't nervous. She had faced rooms like this before, boardrooms with hostile investors, negotiation tables with billion-dollar stakes. But today was different. Today wasn't about numbers. It was about trust. Good morning, Ava began, her voice steady and clear. Thank you for being here. She let the silence hang for a moment, forcing the room to focus. Yesterday, many of you saw a video of me being assaulted and humiliated by a manager in one of our ColeMart stores, she said. I wish I could say I was shocked. But the truth is, what you saw was not new. Not for me, and not for far too many of our customers. A ripple moved through the crowd. Ava continued. I was targeted because of what I looked like, because of assumptions about who I was. That kind of bias isn't unique to ColeMart. It happens every day, in stores, in schools, in workplaces. And for too long, companies have turned a blind eye. She leaned slightly toward the mic. We will not be one of those companies. Applause broke out in the atrium. Ava raised her hand gently to quiet the crowd. Effective immediately, she said, we are launching a company-wide initiative to eliminate discrimination at every level of ColeMart. Every employee, from executives to part-time cashiers, will undergo mandatory training in bias awareness and customer dignity. Every store will have an anonymous reporting system for customers and employees. And every complaint will be investigated, not ignored. Flashes went off as reporters typed furiously. Ava's gaze swept the room. But we will go further. For too long, companies have treated incidents like the one you saw as isolated events. We fire someone, issue an apology, and move on. That's not enough. We need systemic change. She paused, letting the words settle. That's why I'm establishing the Johnson Foundation for Equity in Retail, Ava announced. This foundation will fund programs to address discrimination in the retail industry nationwide. It will partner with advocacy groups, train other companies, and hold all of us accountable. The room erupted in applause again, louder this time. Ava waited, unflinching, until it subsided. This is personal for me, she said, her voice softer now. Because I've lived it. When I was 17, I was thrown out of a store for looking suspicious. I wasn't stealing. I wasn't even shopping. I was just existing. And the shame I felt that day, it never left me. It fueled me. It built the woman you see standing here. The atrium was silent except for the clicking of cameras. I don't want anyone else to carry that shame, Ava continued. Not in our stores. Not anywhere. So when I say ColeMart will change, understand this. It's not a promise. It's a commitment. A reporter stood up. Ms. Johnson, will Harris Cole face legal action? Ava didn't flinch. Yes, we are cooperating fully with law enforcement, and we will support any customers or employees who wish to bring forward their own complaints against him. Another reporter asked, Are you worried about backlash? Ava's eyes hardened. If standing up for dignity causes backlash, then it's backlash we welcome. Because silence is not an option. Applause filled the room again, thunderous this time. Employees stood, clapping, some with tears in their eyes. Community leaders nodded in solidarity. Carla stepped close, whispering, "We're trending again. Hashtag never silence." Ava nodded. "Good," she murmured. She stepped back from the podium as the crowd continued to applaud. She wasn't finished. There was still more work to do, more systems to rebuild, more hearts to reach. But in that moment, as the cameras flashed and voices rose in unity, Ava Johnson knew the tide was turning. And this was only the beginning. The roar of applause from the press conference still echoed in Ava Johnson's ears as she returned to her office on the 32nd floor of ColeMart headquarters. The glass walls offered a sweeping view of the city, but Ava's mind was on the screens lighting up in front of her. Carla set a stack of reports on the desk. "The response has been overwhelming," she said. "Our hashtags are trending in 40 countries. Donations to the Johnson Foundation hit $2 million in the first hour. Customers are flooding our social channels with support." Ava scrolled through her phone. Thousands of messages poured in. Employees sharing their own stories, customers pledging to shop exclusively at ColeMart, community leaders offering to partner on the new initiatives. "Good," Ava said. "This is bigger than a single store. People are ready for real change." Carla hesitated. "Not everyone is." Ava looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" Carla slid a printed email across the desk. "We've been getting messages from certain regional managers. They're not happy about your announcement. Some are calling the bias training a waste of resources. A few even threatened to resign." Ava read the email silently, jaw tightening. This company can't cater to every complaint. If customers feel mistreated, that's their problem, not ours. She dropped the page onto the desk. "Find out who sent these," she said quietly. "If they're willing to ignore discrimination, they're not the kind of leaders we need." Carla nodded, but her expression was troubled. "There's more. We've intercepted chatter online from a small, but vocal group. Former employees, certain lobbyists, they're pushing a narrative that you overreacted. They're calling you power-hungry, claiming you staged the incident to make a point." Ava sat back in her chair, the weight of the accusations settling in. She had expected backlash, but not this quickly. "Do we know who's behind it?" she asked. "We're still tracing it," Carla said. "But some of the accounts are connected to competitors. They see the goodwill you're generating, and they want to tear it down." Ava's gaze shifted to the city skyline beyond the glass. "Let them try," she said softly. "We don't answer lies with silence. We answer with action." Carla's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, then looked up. "You've got a call from the board." Ava exhaled. "Patch it through." The speakerphone clicked. "Ava," came the voice of James, the board chair. "We saw the press conference. Strong message. But you've stirred up a hornet's nest." "I know," Ava said. "Some investors are nervous," James continued. "They're worried about lawsuits, boycotts, distractions from growth. They want assurances this won't hurt the bottom line." Ava's voice was firm. "What hurts the bottom line is a culture of abuse. If we don't fix this now, the damage will be irreversible." Silence crackled on the line. Then Sarah, another board member, spoke. "We're behind you, Ava. But we need results. Show us that this isn't just about optics." "You'll get results," Ava said. "I'm cleaning house. Anyone who doesn't align with these values will be gone. And we'll build a company people can actually trust." "Make it happen," James said, before the call ended with a sharp click. Ava sat back, her reflection mirrored in the glass wall. She knew the path ahead would be harder than the public applause made it seem. Real change always came with resistance. Carla broke the silence. "What's our next move?" Ava's eyes hardened. "We audit every region, every manager, every complaint that was buried. I want names, dates, patterns. We shine a light on all of it." Carla nodded. "And the smear campaign?" Ava stood, straightening her blazer. "We don't fight them in the shadows. We go louder. I want every employee and customer to see that this company is for them, not for the people who abuse their power." She looked out at the city again, the hum of traffic below reminding her of the millions of lives her company touched every day. "They're going to try to break me," she said quietly. "But they've already forgotten the first rule." Carla tilted her head. "What's that?" Ava turned, her voice like steel. "You don't break someone who's already built herself from nothing. 2 days later, the 12th floor conference room of ColeMart headquarters was filled with silence so heavy it could crush the air. 20 regional managers sat around the polished oak table, some with arms crossed defiantly, others nervously fiddling with pens. Ava Johnson entered without a word, her heels striking the floor like a metronome. Carla followed, carrying a thick binder of files. They didn't sit immediately. Ava let the discomfort settle, watching the faces around her. "You all know why you're here," she began finally, her voice sharp and clear. "This isn't a routine meeting. This is a reckoning." One of the older managers, Rick Daniels, shifted in his chair. "With all due respect, Ms. Johnson, we've been running these regions for decades. We don't need lectures about how to do our jobs." Ava turned toward him slowly. "No, you don't need lectures," she said evenly. "You need accountability." She opened the binder and slid a document across the table. Complaint number 412. A customer in your region was profiled, accused of theft, and banned from a store without evidence. They filed 3 reports. All were ignored. You signed off on the dismissals. Rick's jaw tightened. "That's not unusual. People exaggerate to get free merchandise. We can't investigate every single." "You will investigate every single one," Ava cut in. Her voice was low, but the weight behind it silenced the room. Because behind those complaints are real people. People who deserve respect, even if they're not holding a gold card. Another manager, Lisa Grant, spoke up. "This bias training, these audits, they're expensive. Morale is dropping. Our numbers are already strained." Ava stepped closer to the table. "Our numbers are strained because customers don't trust us. Because employees are scared to speak up. We can't build profit on broken systems. Fix the culture, and the numbers will follow." Rick muttered. "Not everyone agrees with your methods." Ava's eyes flicked to Carla, who pressed a button on the remote. The wall screen lit up with a grid of emails, all sent by the people in the room. Messages mocking the bias initiative, belittling customers, and even suggesting ways to weed out the complainers. "You want to know how I found out who was sabotaging this?" Ava asked. "You told me yourselves." Gasps rippled through the table. One manager's face drained of color. "This ends now," Ava said. "You have 2 choices. Align with this company's values, or leave. Effective immediately." "Wait, you can't just," Rick started. "I can," Ava interrupted, her voice like a blade. "Because I will not allow one more customer to be treated the way I was treated. If you think this is about politics or appearances, you're in the wrong place." She looked at Carla. "Begin the terminations." Carla's fingers flew across the keyboard. Notifications pinged on phones around the table. A few managers stared in disbelief as their logins went dark, company credentials revoked in real time. "This is insane," one of them shouted, standing abruptly. "No," Ava said quietly. "This is justice." The managers who remained seated in silence knew the choice they had to make. One by one, they nodded. "Good," Ava said, scanning the room. "Those of you still here will rebuild this company with me. Those who aren't will be replaced by leaders who understand what respect looks like." She closed the binder with a sharp snap. "This isn't a suggestion. It's the future of ColeMart." As the terminated managers gathered their belongings and stormed out, Carla leaned close. "That was 1/3 of your leadership team," she whispered. Ava didn't flinch. "Then we'll rebuild from scratch. Better to lead with fewer people than to be led by the wrong ones." She turned back to the remaining managers. "We're not finished," she said. "We'll audit every store, every incident. And if anyone is found protecting abusive behavior, they'll join the ones who just left." The room was silent. No one dared challenge her now. Ava straightened her blazer, the steel in her voice softening just slightly. "We're going to become the company we should have been all along. And it starts today." The headlines hit like a storm. CEO Ava Johnson stages publicity stunt for power grab, says former employees, ColeMart founder under fire for corporate overreach. Anonymous leaks claim Johnson's diversity push is bankrupting company. Ava scrolled through the news feed in silence as Carla stood nearby, her expression grim. "They're everywhere," Carla said. "Mainstream media, business blogs, even political commentators. It's coordinated." Ava set the tablet down carefully. "Who's behind it?" "We traced the initial leaks to a lobbying group backed by your biggest competitor," Carla explained. "They're funding anonymous sources to spin the narrative that you fired Harris Cole and others to tighten your control over the company. They're calling your bias initiative a purge." Ava's jaw tightened. Of course they are. They're afraid we're actually changing the industry. Carla handed her a folder. It's worse. Some of the terminated managers from last week have joined the smear campaign. They're giving interviews, painting you as a tyrant. Investors are starting to panic. Ava opened the folder, scanning transcripts of quotes. She humiliated us to look like a hero. She cares more about her image than employees' jobs. Her voice was low, but sharp. They're trying to rewrite the story. Carla nodded. And it's working. The stock dipped 8% this morning. The board wants an emergency call tonight. They're worried this will spiral out of control. Ava leaned back in her chair, letting the weight of the situation settle. She knew how quickly public opinion could turn. She had seen other CEOs buckle under less. But she wasn't other CEOs. Schedule a live interview, Ava said finally. Carla blinked. With who? The biggest network we can get. Primetime. No pre-recorded segments. No scripted questions. I'll face them head on. Carla hesitated. That's risky. They'll try to ambush you. Let them, Ava said. I won't hide behind statements. People need to see me. Hear me. Carla nodded, already making calls. Moments later, Ava's phone buzzed. It was James, the board chair. Ava, we need to talk, his voice boomed. This smear campaign is doing real damage. We can't afford to lose more market confidence. I understand, Ava said calmly. Then scale it back, James insisted. Delay the audits. Stop firing managers until this blows over. Give the investors reassurance. No, Ava said firmly. That's exactly what they want, for us to retreat. If we back down now, we're telling everyone that bias and abuse are acceptable as long as the numbers look good. Ava, this isn't negotiable, James, she cut in. I'm not dismantling everything we've built because some people are uncomfortable with accountability. Silence crackled on the line. Then James sighed heavily. Fine, but you'd better turn this around. Fast. The call ended. Ava stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, staring out at the city below. Carla approached cautiously. What's the plan? We tell the truth, Ava said. We show the public that this company belongs to its people, not to those who abuse their power. And we don't wait for permission to do it. Carla handed her a new phone, its screen lighting up with notifications. The network confirmed. They want you on air tomorrow night. Ava took the phone. Good. Then we'll show them who we really are. She turned from the window, her reflection in the glass sharp and resolute. They thought they could bury us in lies. But all they've done is hand us the microphone. The studio lights were blinding, hot enough to prickle Ava Johnson's skin. Cameras loomed on every side, red tally lights glowing. A producer counted down from 5, her voice a whisper in the earpiece. We're live in 3, 2, 1. Good evening. The host began, turning to the camera. Tonight, we're joined by Ava Johnson, CEO of ColeMart, who has been at the center of a firestorm. Ms. Johnson, thank you for being here. Ava inclined her head. Thank you for having me. The host's expression hardened as he turned back to Ava. Let's get straight to it. Many are calling your recent actions a corporate power grab. You've fired dozens of managers in less than a month and implemented sweeping reforms. Critics say you're destabilizing the company and hurting employees. What do you say to that? Ava didn't blink. I say those critics are wrong. I'm not destabilizing ColeMart. I'm saving it. And I'm saving the customers and employees who deserve better than what they've been given. The host raised an eyebrow. Saving it from what? From a culture that allowed discrimination and abuse to fester unchecked. Ava said. I was assaulted in one of my own stores because a manager assumed I didn't belong. Imagine how many customers, who didn't have my title or resources, have experienced the same thing. That's not a company worth leading. That's a company in crisis. The studio went silent for a beat. The host shuffled his papers. But there are former employees claiming you staged that incident. That you humiliated Harris Cole to boost your image. What's your response? Ava leaned forward, her voice low but sharp. I don't stage being slapped in the face. I don't stage humiliation. I lived it. And if people would rather believe lies than confront the reality of bias in this country, that says more about them than about me. A murmur rippled through the studio audience. The host pressed on. Some investors worry these initiatives, the audits, the mandatory training, are bad for the bottom line. Are you willing to risk the company's financial health for a social agenda? Ava's gaze didn't waver. This isn't a social agenda. It's a business imperative. If your employees are scared and your customers feel disrespected, you will lose them. Culture drives performance. I'd rather lose a few points of stock in the short term than lose the soul of the company forever. The host hesitated, then pivoted. One last question. There are rumors that certain competitors are funding the smear campaign against you. Are you blaming others for ColeMart's problems? Ava sat back slightly, her voice cutting clean through the noise. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm telling the truth. There are people who benefit from maintaining the status quo, who profit from fear and silence. They want me to back down because real change threatens them. But I will not back down. The host glanced at his producer, clearly unsettled by Ava's composure. Ms. Johnson, we're nearly out of time. Any final message you'd like to leave with the public? Ava looked directly into the camera lens, as if speaking to every household watching. To every customer, every employee, every person who's ever been told they don't belong. I see you. I hear you. And I will fight for you. ColeMart will fight for you. We are building a company where dignity isn't optional. It's the standard. And anyone who stands in the way of that will not last. The silence that followed was absolute. Then the audience erupted in applause, louder than any the host had anticipated. He looked at Ava, visibly caught off guard. Thank you, Ms. Johnson, he said finally. Ava rose from her chair, calm and steady. As the cameras faded to black, Carla met her at the studio door. It's already blowing up, Carla whispered. The clips are going viral. Public sentiment is shifting fast. Ava allowed herself the faintest smile. Good. Now they know I'm not afraid of the fight. She stepped out of the studio into the cool night air, the sound of the city alive around her. The battle wasn't over, but she had just turned the tide. The morning after the live interview, the numbers told a story louder than any headline. Public sentiment had flipped. Social media feeds were flooded with clips of Ava Johnson's unwavering words, shared millions of times. Customers posted messages of solidarity, pledging their support. Former employees who had once stayed silent began to come forward, thanking Ava for giving them the courage to speak. Carla burst into Ava's office with a tablet in her hands. You have to see this, she said, beaming. Stock's up 10% since the interview aired. And check this. Applications for store-level positions have doubled overnight. People want to work for you, Ava. Ava looked at the screen, then back at Carla. They want to work for something bigger than me. That's what matters. But Carla wasn't done. There's more. Competitors who fueled the smear campaign? They've been exposed. Journalists traced the funding back to them. They're scrambling now, denying everything, but the damage is done. Ava exhaled slowly. She knew the fight had been brutal, but now the tide had fully turned. Good, she said quietly. That's the cost of playing dirty. The door opened, and James, the board chair, stepped in. For the first time in weeks, his expression wasn't hard. Ava, he said, the board is unanimous. We stand with you. Whatever you need to keep rebuilding this company, you have our full support. Ava inclined her head. Thank you. But this was never about board approval. It's about the people who walk into our stores every day. James nodded, chastened. Later that afternoon, Ava stood in the atrium of ColeMart headquarters, the same space where she had announced her reforms days earlier. This time, thousands of employees joined virtually from every region, their faces filling the massive screens behind her. Today, Ava began. We close one chapter and begin another. We've fired those who refuse to change, and we've replaced them with leaders who value integrity. We've launched training, reporting systems, and a foundation to fight discrimination not just in ColeMart, but in the entire retail industry. The screens flickered with applause emojis, nodding faces, hands raised in solidarity. This company belongs to you, Ava continued. To the cashier who smiles at customers even on the hardest days. To the stock clerk who stays late to keep the shelves full. To every customer who trusts us with their time and money. You deserve better than what you've been given. And now, we will deliver better, together. Ava's voice softened, but the words carried weight. I was slapped in one of my own stores because a manager decided I didn't belong. That moment could have broken me. But instead, it reminded me why I built this company. To create spaces where no one is made to feel small. Where dignity isn't something you earn. It's something you're given. Simply because you exist. She paused, letting the silence settle. To everyone listening, Ava said, looking directly into the camera, never mistake silence for weakness. I didn't fight back in that store with anger because I knew the truth would be louder than any outburst. And it was. That's what real power looks like. The employees erupted into cheers across every screen, the sound echoing in the atrium like a victory anthem. Carla stood off to the side, tears glistening in her eyes. Ava stepped away from the podium as the applause thundered around her. She thought about that teenage girl in Atlanta all those years ago, escorted out of a boutique for looking suspicious. That girl had felt invisible. Today, she was anything but. As the celebration swelled, Ava Johnson allowed herself a rare smile. The fight had been long, the scars real, but the outcome was undeniable. She hadn't just saved a company. She had set a standard, and the world was watching.